You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at the Pace Radio Network, Facebook pages, YouTube, and our website, as well as at cbgtv.com. I'm El Graham, and hello to my hardworking joint host, Tamara, who's just literally coming into the broadcast as the intro music is playing.
I rolled into the driveway at 2 minutes to 6, and I was like, ah! So I made it. I'm on time.
You're on time. Wow, that was kind of close. Nice shirt.
I know. This is my work shirt. So I wear this at work.
Wow.
Yeah. I get to wear this at work. Leaf on it. You betcha. Because we know homegrown. Ask us. So yeah. I'm the cannabis expert at work, right? I'm the one that gets all the questions about home growing and cannabis. So I get to wear this shirt at work.
Nice. Excellent.
Yeah. I love it. I love my job. It's a good job. I've been selling Remo's nutrients like hotcakes.
Really, eh? Going out the door.
As soon as they come to the counter, I say, hey, can I show you something else that might do your plants a little better? And I take them back to the counter and I give them the spiel. And there's no disputing, never mind, it's Canadian made in British Columbia, it's vegan, and it's the best product I've ever used. So it's easy to sell.
Easy to sell. Good sells itself.
Yeah, and the root starter, right? Because it's got a root start of max like between 3 and 6 days to pull roots. People are just buying that like crazy because there's no other better root starter. I've tried several and I've never had anything work as good. So yeah. And lots of people are growing. And lots of people are still getting medical license. I actually helped a guy the other day that had a 200 plant grow because he had a prescription for cannabis. And he showed me his pictures and, oh my gosh, they were beautiful. He's just beautiful. But he took the Remo's nutrients to try and get them even more beautiful. So I can't tell them to Google him and check out his garden because he's an award-winning grower. And like I said, easy stuff to sell.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I bet your boss is happy that you come up with a good recommend. You know, the first recommendation you probably come up with is product-wise, and people are buying it.
Well, let's put it this way. I've only worked there not even 2 months yet. I haven't even made my 3-month probation yet, but I've already gotten a $1 an hour raise.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Right? Yeah, and I work Monday to Friday now, and I get weekends off, and I'm making better money. And yeah, I can't complain about a thing. It's a great place to work.
Very good. And yeah, you got regular hours now.
Yeah, I'm working 9 to 5:30. Tomorrow night I work till 6:30 though. But my Wednesdays I've told them 9 to 5:30, and that's what they've done. So any other day I don't care. I can work till 6. I can work till 6:30. But Wednesdays are special. So
then you get to fly home.
Yeah, well, I get off at 5:30, and it takes me about 10 minutes. But I had a birthday present to drop off to my friend Jessica, it's her 40th birthday today. So I wanted to quickly, happy birthday to Jessica. She's 40 today. So I wanted to quickly drop off a little gift. So I bought her some seeds and some dirt and a pot so she could start her own little herb garden.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a little herb garden, and then that little herb garden becomes a little bigger herb garden.
Right, but even you can't be giving somebody some dirt in a little pot with some seeds for basil and rosemary and oregano, and you know what I mean. And then they can start a little pot in the house. And I also bought her a shamrock bulb. So because the shamrock plants are start with a bulb, right? So we have some of those in right now. So I grabbed her some of those too.
Oh, good. Well, I see you posting some pictures of the plants. Looks like plants that you've saved.
Oh, I brought 3 more home tonight.
Did you really? There you go.
I think I bought probably almost between bringing home stuff to save and buying stuff that comes in, because we get all kinds of neat plants. Like we got these ones right now, they're called curly squirrels, and they got curly little, like they look like chives, but they curl up like a corkscrew, and then they flower. So there's, like I said, we get all kinds of exotic tropicals, and we've got grapefruits and limes and citric lemons, grapefruits. So, and then we also bring in, because we're a great big huge garden center, we bring in everything. So shrubs and trees and fruit bearing, everything. Like it's a
Oh,
huge
nice.
store. I think our
Huge, huge.
store is bigger than our Walmart here. The only thing that we don't
Well,
sell is food.
I just think it's that time of year where it's going to get really busy as the snow melts and the spring sets in. Like I can tell you that we could probably take a pound of fur off of our dog on a daily basis.
Oh,
Because
I know, right? Right now, yeah, especially.
It's,
Well, we grow all our own bedding out plants and all our own stuff. So we also have 3 great big huge greenhouses out on Mission Road out here. And we bring in some foreign temporary workers. We have 6 Mexicans that come up every year. And right now they're planting everything. So right now our greenhouse is in full swing, and they are planting thousands and thousands and thousands of seeds, because everything that comes out of our greenhouses, we grow ourselves.
grow
No, not
yourselves.
everything. I wouldn't say everything, but
Yeah.
a good portion of it comes out, like roses. And like I said, it's just unbelievable, the stuff that we do out there.
Good. We
Yeah.
have friends that have a garden center up on Manitoulin Island, and I know what you mean. All different kinds of plants and trees and shrubs.
Everything. Like I said,
I found a Japanese tree. I found a Japanese tree that the leaf looks like a cannabis leaf.
Oh, the Japanese maple. Yeah, absolutely does.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Japanese maple for sure. And there's also a daisy. Remember my friend that got busted with the biggest outdoor marijuana grow in Lethbridge a few years back, probably about 10 years back? And then they were daisies, and I had some in my yard in Tabor too, but they thought they were cannabis. So one of the neighbors had said he's got all this cannabis growing in his backyard. The Lethbridge City Police didn't even realize that they weren't cannabis till they had them tested. And then it was called Oops a Daisy, because they were actually daisies that looked like cannabis. And they were actually daisies.
I can tell you our guest tonight would have been able to tell the police the difference, because that's partially what he does. So why don't we find out more about him and how he can tell these people. All right. Well, at this time, I'd like to introduce a guest who is a business owner. He's also an advocate, plus does much more. And I'm just going to let him tell you. So we'd like to welcome Matt Jerome to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Al. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, Tamara.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We get
good.
to chat about our favorite plant, and I'm excited to be here.
I get to. This is my work shirt.
I love it.
I'm actually teaching people how to grow grow in a mainstream garden center.
It's so amazing to realize, as you said, the season is upon us pretty soon. It will be sooner than we know, where people are, cracking seeds and planting their medicine. And it's an exciting time in the whole spectrum of, the world. It's just amazing that I
never thought I'd be working in a garden center teaching people how to grow cannabis. And when they come in, I can ask them, so what are you growing? Are you growing cannabis? Yeah. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, let me show you this. So it's just like, I never thought I'd be doing this, right? And it's like, I'm so happy. It just makes me,
you can tell.
It's funny. I started, one of my first jobs was in a garden center, and I think of it a lot as it was around the same time that I remember promising myself. I started growing on the side, so it was a great place to work on the, work on
we put everything. We carry green planet nutrients. We carry all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but I mean the nutrients too, right? Like that's a big thing. Like before, we used to sneak off to Calgary to get bumper A and bumper B, right? Which we do carry in the store as well now. We carry Green Planet, we carry some Initiative, but I've got Remos nutrients in there now. And that wasn't there. But in fact, we're the first distributor in this part of British Columbia for Remos nutrients. And we have 2 stores. We have one in Cranbrook and we have one in Kimberley too. So we've got Remos nutrients in 2 East Kootenay locations now that weren't here before. So I'm really happy about that too.
next time I chat with them, I'll let them know that you.
Oh, they know.
customers. Yeah.
Yeah, they know.
Uh,
Oh yeah, I talked to
oh
Sandra and
yeah,
Remo.
I
Like it
know.
was sad. That's the reason why I brought them in, because I've been in Remo's garden too, right? And I've been out to where in on the Lower Mainland to their house, and I've been there, so I know, and I know them, and it's like I said, it's not because I know them. I know the product is good. I know that I can sell that product because I've used it myself, right? So it's pretty easy to sell
Yeah,
something that you have so much confidence in. But no,
People
Sandra and
caring
Remo are
about
well
you.
aware. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
we
great.
our first
I
order
had
that we put in was over $12,000. That was just the
oh,
first one. And then we're out of supercharge kits already. We brought in 10 supercharge kits, they're gone.
I had a great time with Remo over at the cannabis expo that we had over in Niagara. I think it was last year, and
yeah,
got to hit it off with Sandra and Remo and the whole
yeah,
gang down
Yeah,
there.
they're
I had a
great people.
wonderful time. Yeah,
Yeah, they're
yeah.
great people. Yeah,
and
there's
yeah,
no nicer people.
Uh,
it's an exciting time to have. I think back to that, garden center I worked in, and
yeah.
promising myself that if one day I could do this with cannabis, that I had to do it. And it's crazy to think, how far everything's come. Still a long way to go, because I know we've
Oh
got
yeah.
to have shows like this really advocating for what we need, but huge steps in the right direction. I always like to start with that, especially living in a place where we can, happily go grow our medicine, and I don't
Exactly.
know, it's smoking in Ontario. It's nice to not worry about the cops running around the corner and just ruining your day and you ruining
Over
their day,
60,000 people have not been arrested for possession in the last 4 years.
which frees
Wow.
them up
Yeah.
to do, a lot more important things, like
Yeah.
we've
Oh yeah.
been
Yeah. Yeah.
advocating for years.
Well,
Let's
I'm
Yeah.
in British
Well,
Columbia.
like as you said, you've been advocating for years. Let's get into some of that stuff that you did in the past,
yeah.
as well as I wanted to also. Um, you've got a unique, I'm gonna call unique title in your name. There is Ganjier. So obviously, I want to find out about that, and that was what I was referring to about the person. You would be a person who would know that those daisies were daisies.
I really like to think so, that I would have been able to save you
You could
taxpayers
you,
some
you
money.
could tell they were daisies. The cops just
Yeah.
couldn't tell they were daisies, and it was ridiculous. Because I had them in
Well,
my front yard too, right? But yeah, they didn't. They had a front page of the newspaper: biggest outdoor marijuana grow busted, blah blah. And then the poor guy got raked through the coals because they newspaper, and they didn't even apologize. They never
No, they don't
retracted it.
want to do that.
Nothing.
No, it's over and
uh,
done with for them. It's gone. So
yeah.
back to you, Matt. Would you get to, like, some of us start off as a patient. We start with cannabis as a patient, and we just basically we can't stop talking. We gotta tell people about it, and sharing stories and stuff like that does that. So yeah, let us know how you got things going, and we'll go from there.
Happy to. I started using cannabis at a pretty young age, around 14 or so. Kind of, using it with friends. It was
Yeah.
something that I was exposed to in the way that, my mom was a former hippie, had cannabis around in my family, as far as, cousins
Okay.
who used it and things like that. But started using it, like for the fun of it when I was young, but really started to dive into realizing how therapeutic it was for me a little bit later on. I'm a former athlete, in the sense that played a lot of contact sports and did a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
damage, lots of concussions. Have a number of kind of glitches from that, I like to say. And
Sounds like football.
that's football, hockey, lacrosse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, lacrosse too, eh? It's not
Yeah,
very often I hear that
yeah.
because
Cross is
I
not as
played lacrosse.
contact, but it's still pretty contact. Yeah.
Yeah, I played
Yeah.
lacrosse too.
I played, yeah, anything I played, I played, it was a contact sport. So
Yeah.
that became very apparent to me, that it was very therapeutic, kind of later on in high school. played the sports culture as well, very much a party atmosphere, and led you to one or the other. Much more pointed towards alcohol and that kind of scene with the sports that I played. And I kind of chose the other route. And it was something to me that was intuitive. It was something that I kind of just felt was the right choice, despite being told by ironically, a number of people who would have rather people drink or, that compared to cannabis, so ill-informed, but, called criminal, drug addict, all sorts of negative stuff, that really, even now we're kind of fighting the stigma of just being so misinformed, so just following the rhetoric. It's very, very tough to still be fighting that, but we're making huge steps. But again, yeah, that's when I started really advocate. I guess I started as an advocate, like everyone does, as an advocate for themselves, just kind of quietly fighting my own fight, going, all right, you call me whatever you want. I'm really choosing something that at the end of the day, I go home and instead of I felt numbing the pain, I was kind of processing it. I was still able to function without having it take me over. And it was really ironic being called the other things when a lot of people I play sports with have gone the other route, and unfortunately have fallen to a vice or two that gets implanted when we're young, and that's how it happens. But
because if they're not interested in the cannabis end, more than likely they'd end up on the opiate end, being with the sports, the injuries, stuff like that.
And it was it was another. It's ironic that you say that out, because it was a little veer off into my role as a grower and even more of an advocate, and as a true patient, meeting some people. It was kind of a duality of people up near my cottage, a little north of where I live from Toronto, that were ex-athletes, ex-veterans, ex-armed forces workers, emergency workers, kind of a real mix-up. And all of them used cannabis medicinally. All of them, through one form or another, got hooked up together. And that was something that was so liberating for me, to really find people who went, no, man, we get you. You're making the right choice. This is what you're supposed to do. And it was kind of a match made in heaven, because I had done a lot of work in HVAC as a steam fitter, and had very handy with the trades, as well as had been really bathed in the West Coast cannabis scene of California, having family out there from LA and Hollywood, up a little bit north of San Francisco. So I shamelessly freeloaded when I was a kid, getting out there as much as I possibly could, hanging out with
cousins. California.
Exactly.
It's California.
There's nothing like it. So when I found cannabis here with a buddy of mine, like I mentioned, having your first cannabis experience. I think I smoked it a couple times, and then headed out to California, and then had my first LA party, which was not what I expected at all, because we went up a little north, quite a bit of a drive, and hung out at kind of a ranch / grow, where I met one of the backyard. Instead of looking out on lights or anything, his lights were his cannabis lights in the back, and he was just coming
outside.
Back. It was it was a kind of greenhouse setup that he had. It was pretty amazing, and that was one of the best introductions to cannabis out there, and really sparked my flame for the culture. I really got in touch with some very cool people
Well,
who
because
are
to
out.
be honest, like even though we've had a medical program for 23 years, California has really been like leaps and bounds ahead of us. And
Yeah,
even now, when you think about the product, and I know people complain about the prices and stuff, but even their pricing point, I think, has come down a bit. But they've been leaps and bounds ahead of us. Even Denver, leaps and bounds ahead of us.
yeah,
And then
They
you,
got
you think that they
lounges.
would model us more after that, but they still haven't. When they see success somewhere, why don't they continue to follow that? They want to just start with their own regulations, which I find kind of some of them a little bit overkill. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like overkill. You can't advertise. You can put a unicorn on a beer can, but you can't put anything appealing to children on cannabis. Yet cannabis is safer for them than that beer.
yeah,
And I wish they would just understand that it's apples to oranges.
yeah. As you say, the California industry is kind of they're leaps and bounds ahead of it. And again, there are nitpicking. There are some stuff in the California industry that I
Yeah. Oh
wouldn't
yeah. Yeah.
agree
It's
with.
not all just smooth
I
sailing.
wouldn't bring it over, but I completely agree. Again, dispensary style was one of the first I saw in California, where you went in and you just handpicked your bud. You got to talk to someone who, in my case, I talked to the grower. Like I was the guy who was behind it, and it all kind of seeped in. And this is, I'll jump a bit because this is really in my blood because I have a lot of influence from the European culture. I mentioned
Mhm.
this to Al before we got on, but I had I grew up with a single mom who was a former journalist before she had me and was traveling all over the world. And as she had me, slowed down a bit, but still, having that background really had opportunities as a producer and a journalist and a writer that she ended up traveling quite a bit as well, which I naturally just traveled with her. So I spent a lot of time in Europe, in Amsterdam, London, Paris, lots of France, and I say London and Paris, but kind of all over.
Mhm.
And as I say with that, it's something that when you, for instance, taste your first Swiss chocolate, your first French croissant or patisserie or cheese from, there's something different. And it's what I go back to California as that is our at least my mecca for cannabis and for the quality that can be achieved, because I think of cannabis like that, like on the terms being a Ganjier, which I will explain what it is,
Yeah.
and lean into that with California culture. But um, cannabis can be viewed as uh, a gustatory experience. It is something that doesn't really have a level of how good or how high the quality can reach. The same way as cheese or wine or beer or scotch. In that, I don't like to compare industries because some people get a little skewed, but there are a lot of similarities. However, with cannabis, as we know, the potential is almost infinite with the ability to breed, with the ability to
Oh
bring
yeah.
quality into the product, into the breeding, into the processing, into the creation of genetics. So this is something that's been at my heart for a while, which was why as soon as the Ganjier program was officially formed, I was lined up at the door waiting. And I'll explain
How
what
did
that. Go
like
ahead.
this
Go ahead.
gun? Yeah, this this program. Where was it? Like I remember seeing it because we do the news here on the
Yep.
network,
Hmm.
and I remember seeing it and reporting on you becoming the first. They called it smelter.
Smelter.
The smelter or something like that. Like somebody with wine.
Oh,
Um,
sommelier. Yeah, the like a
oh
cannabis
yeah, there
sommelier.
we go. Yeah,
There we go. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
that's what it's akin to. Again, just
yeah.
like
Okay.
a Cicerone program for a beer or a fromager for cheese. Not many people realize how niche a market these things I mentioned can get. And like, not even arguably, you will not be able to argue out some of the people who know that there can be better, always refine the process. And as I said, as soon as this program I saw was being created, I was lined up at the door. I am a longtime follower of Frenchie Cannoli, humble student of his, and followed his teachings for a long time, along with Kevin Jodrey. Read Mel Frank's books since I can remember. Knew about Wendy Kornberg and her amazing farm over at Sunibus, and had followed Derek and a number of the other guys in the industry that were also part of the Ganjier Council. These are people who have created this program and who are part of, I say create, but it was formed with everyone's opinion.
Established.
And, it just wasn't there one second, not there the other. This is decades, arguably centuries of work in going into this with each respective view, and incredible amount of knowledge that goes into it. So it was something that not just caught my eye, but was it became very much a goal for me. So as soon as it kind of was rolled out, I was told by Frenchie, when he was over here at Niagara at his hash making class, the last one I was at, told that that's the next thing we need to do, and happily was the first Canadian to maybe not the first Canadian to be accepted. I'm not sure of that, but was accepted to the first round of the program, which is based out of Humboldt, California. So Emerald Triangle, around, just again, the Mecca for me, not just for cannabis, but spending a lot of time in California. I always say LA. Spending a lot of time in California. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. If you haven't been, and you are a cannabis lover, you have two things to go for. But everyone has it.
And the criminal record says I can't.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
For weed. Yeah. So I'm sorry.
It's so like, that's another thing. But that's another reason we're trying to bring it back here. We're trying to bring the ideology. We're trying to bring the potential, really. Yeah. Because
in the past, I've had some guests on the show, because we had Julie Corello on the program as a host, and she's in California and owner of Skunk Magazine. And so she'd bring on guests that were people that's where they were doing. They're up in the mountains and created a business, and it's all cannabis related, and it was just you'd hear some of the stories, and it's quite the thing to talk to some of those people.
It's amazing. The pioneers really working the land. It is it's kind of a mystical land up there. It's really no wonder once you get up there, you realize, wow, no wonder the best cannabis grows around here, or arguably, I always say that because the redwoods getting hundreds of feet tall. There's something in the earth there, and that's what it really comes down to, and when you break something down like cannabis, anybody who's grown it, or I always say it's not hard to grow cannabis, and it's incredibly hard to grow good cannabis.
It's hard to grow good cannabis. It is.
Yep. It is. And that's the only thing addictive about it, is growing it. Once you start,
because you want to get better at it, and you want to go better, and you want to find a better strain, and you want to find better, and you always got to get better.
It's magnetizing. It's a magnetizing plant. It really is. And it's just wonderful to know that people are going to get to be able to experience that, whether they do or not. It's that they have the choice now. And working with as many fantastic growers as I have over the years, and wonderful breeders and people who care so much about this plant that they kept it alive during its attempted eradication. is just amazing. These guys have carried this industry on their back, and it's at the not just not getting paid enough, but at the risk of losing their livelihood and losing life.
Oh
and
yeah.
all that wonderful stuff. And it's frustrating to know that we've kind of gone one direction with our entire industry and have forgotten about what we're advocating for. Education. We need people to know what this plant is and what its potential is, because it all starts about the patient. And I know we know it very intimately, but quality equals efficacy. Like your medicine is only as good as your quality. And that's something that boggled my mind coming into this, and was so heartbreaking for so many reasons to see quality go out the window. And I'm a guy who's, I'll extend an olive branch. I know it's not going to go perfectly with an industry this big, this fast. And we had to make room for what I like, the Coors Lights of cannabis, the big business, the people who need to supply the full whoever. But we need the big guys. We need to have a focus on quality for our patients and safe, affordable access to quality cannabis. So I'm really excited to be the first Canadian Ganjier. Sorry,
I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna cut you off there on the Ganjiers. We're gonna go to a break. When we get back, we'll continue on with that. All right.
Sounds great.
After break we go. We'll continue to talk with our guest Matt Jerome in about 2.5 minutes. This is the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Pace Radio is the people advocating cannabis education radio network.
Are you a cannabis content creator? Are you looking for a place to have your content seen? If you answer yes to both questions, then you need to check out cbgtv.com. CBGTV broadcasting to a worldwide audience. Find us at cbgtv.com.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have 2 lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Tamara and I are joined here tonight with our guest, Matthew Jerome. He is the founder and chief consultant at Mariston Cannabis Consulting. Mariston. We're going to get into that. But first, you're a certified Ganjier, and we're going to find out more about that because you were about to say some more before we went to the break.
I was just about to say how proud I was to be the first Canadian. Um, I finished the program in October last year. And what I mean by finished is the program has done a lot of it is online, learning from a number of the um, instructors, I like to say. They're more like gurus and mentors and just overall fantastic people that I've known and followed in the industry for a long time. Uh, they create a lovely online content that you digest wherever you are across this lovely world, and then are brought up to Humboldt and tested in person for your certification and your license. It's overall, I think it was a 4-day process that we had there, three or 4 days. Sorry, it was a wonderful blur. But it is consistent of 3 days and then final exam at the end, and was quite not ashamed in saying it. It's cheesy, but it was truly a dream come true. It was a huge culmination of a lot of work, a lot of genuine effort, a lot of dedication, a lot of resilience to, as we mentioned before, kind of outside forces really trying to work against you, and personally trying to steer me away from that goal of continuing to use cannabis and have cannabis a huge driving force in my life, despite it causing a number of issues, relationship wise, job wise, this and that. I know we've all run into it. That to kind of stay on course and really fulfill a promise to myself that I had when I was younger, to do everything I could to become a professional stoner. Let's say it like,
I want that certification too.
So it was
after 40 years. I think I should be able to get it.
well. I felt like when I got there, it was my expectations were incredibly high because just being around so many of these wonderful minds was very inspiring to me, and didn't really know what to expect because it was the first round, so we didn't have anything to go off. And with the high expectations, I had my expectations blown out of the water. It was truly an immersive experience, not just as an education thing, but as a cannabis user, meeting people from across the world who have shared the dream.
You mentioned that there was, there was different people, gurus, stuff like that, so that were involved in this. Did each one teach different aspects of the plant, or whether it was growing techniques, or DNA of the plants, or anything like?
Exactly. We had, from off the top, we had Frenchy Cannoli teach us about the ancient history of the plants and early uses, going back as far as the Amnite and early tribes. He also did a signature segment on hashish and its evolution, its uses, its the differences. It was as deep a dive as you can go. We had Mel Frank dive into the actual biology and phenology of the plants, breaking down, years of his knowledge into what felt like it was digestible. I mean, you could have gone on for years with that. We had Omar Figueroa teaching us about certain aspects of cannabis law that were coming into effect, that were affecting appellation and different aspects of medicinal and patient sides. We had Justin Calvino teach us about appellations and terroir and models of that. So as well, Kevin Jodry as well teaching us about genetics and the breakdown of crossing and making these wonderful varieties that we have, and how that has come to fruition over the many years, and what really goes into that. So yeah, it was a very, very in-depth group effort, as I said, in the first part of the show, that you really could feel the love of not just putting this, creating this from one day to the next, that it really has an aim, and it's to elevate the cannabis user and the experience and understanding of connoisseurship and aficionadoship, and to help people understand the potential of this amazing plant and what it has, not just therapeutically, which is a massive part of it, but the absolute number of applications we have. It's
those numbers are just huge when it comes to the numbers of things that be created with it.
Hey, so can I ask a question? Because this is something that's coming up a lot. Delta 8. What is Delta 8, and what is its usage, and how dangerous is it?
What I would say is I haven't even looked into what it is, other than it's a formulation made by labs that tries to simulate cannabis. And that's as far as I get, as far as knowing that it's something that we just don't want to be ingesting. It's something that I personally just don't. I would never personally put it in my body, therefore would never recommend anybody else.
Okay, so here's an issue. There's a store in Creston, British Columbia, selling it as CBD, but it's Delta 8. And I have a friend that's taking it for sleep every night. And it's concerning me. She says it works. She can sleep through the night, but she says when she gets up to go to the bathroom, she's kind of holding a wall. I've never heard of cannabis doing that to anybody.
I would say anybody, and again, I'm a guy I've operated my cannabis patient regimes, and the people that I've worked with, I call them patients. They started out as friends. They are friends and family and people that I cared about, who came to me for knowledge and advice because I smoked more pot than them.
Right, exactly. That's exactly it. Like I'm not being asked advice, and I don't know what advice to give her other than
any advice that I lean on Go Natural, just like you would.
I look at the Delta 8 as a processed hemp plant, processed CBD in a hemp plant.
CBD is one that
it hasn't gone over very well.
3.5 grams per tablet. And it's gummy bears, and it says 3.5 grams on the because it comes in a package. It's called Koi whatever gummies, and they're selling them in a health food store.
Yeah, well, that should be checked into right away. As far as natural is the way that I always tell people to go, in the sense that if we don't know what it is, don't trust someone. Because
that's exactly my thoughts too.
Have your best thoughts at interest. CBD, the original hype that everybody, and I don't call it hype in the sense that it isn't effective. CBD is a very, very powerful and useful cannabinoid, but it has been watered down by a lot of people to try to make money, and that's just what we do. So it's something that you have to be very wary of, where you're getting and what you're getting, because the CBD that I originally started seeing around, first thing I ever saw that was CBD hash. And that's because the guy who found one of the first CBD plants, or CBD, it wasn't even dominant, as we call it. It just had a little bit in it. Was fantastic. It was lovely stuff. It was beautiful because it came, personally, it's because it came from the cannabis plant. And I have nothing against hemp. It's a very, very useful plant, but it is not something that has psychoactive. That's not its main job.
No,
it has it, but it's not something that it is designed to make, and therefore it is not as effective as it could possibly be if we shifted our minds to making CBD cannabis readily available, have hemp do its job in the sense where it should replace a lot of the industries that we have going on. And I try to digress on that, but I've been mind boggled that this cannabis industry was created and hemp packaging wasn't the main use of absolutely everything.
Yeah, no, exactly.
The amount of waste that is happening in cannabis is absolutely gut wrenching to see for so many reasons. Because, anyways, I try to digress on that, but it's something we had another way to capitalize on. And I just see so many strikes and missed opportunities in the way that this was rolled out as a nation, mainly of which that the patients have gotten forgotten. Delta H would never exist if cannabis and all its therapeutic values have been the education of what it is, what it should do, why we take it, the health benefits, the potential harms, damage.
I know.
Control.
I agree.
It
should have never been ripped apart. It should have never been marketed as euphoric. Take CBD, it's okay. Let's legalize it because you can get CBD. You're not going to get high. Like when people say they don't want to take THC, I says, what are you afraid of? Especially when you're a terminal cancer patient, you don't want to eat RSO because you're afraid of getting high. What kind of high do you think you're going to get? Like, you're not going to be climbing the walls. Like, I don't understand that, like, there's so much stigma and rhetoric that has gone on with this reefer madness from the get-go to where people actually believe that you're going to be, like, seeing, even the 70s show, like, some of the depictions of what people that use cannabis have been, in the media, on TV shows, they have done, this is why we still have to fight.
Yeah. And it's a lot of unpeeling the years of, we'll just call it brainwashing, because it's what it was, as far as just lying to people on the biggest scale possible. But it's so prevalent to me to see how it survived, how so many pioneers and warriors have kept this whole thing alive.
Because their mission was to extract it, to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's it.
But they were going to get rid of it, even the hemp. Prior to prohibition, hemp had to be growing. Like the farmers had to grow a number of hemp, right? They had to have hemp in fields, and then the cotton, growers came out, and the cotton, because cotton is easy to be reproduced, where hemp lasts forever, right? Hemp products last forever. A hemp shirt will last you 10 years, where a cotton shirt, you're lucky if it lasts a year.
I just took off a hoodie that's 12 years old that's made of hemp before the broadcast.
So there's no money in that. This all came back down, and it all comes down to greed.
It does. And it's something that is very prevalent when you start to, peel back the layers of the rotten onion, as I like to call it, and get to the real heart of it. And learning about, again, the other thing that growing up in California made me very aware of was the San Francisco epidemic and the fight that went on there. And these people,
I know,
they are heroes. They stood in defiance of pure, I don't know what else to call it, but evil, but just people, lack of human compassion that happened on one side, and then the absolute amazing human compassion on the other side by guys like Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary and Todd McRee.
And Pebbles and all those, Pebbles, like Trip.
I always say his name wrong. I don't know if you guys haven't heard of him.
And then there's so many of them that were down there too that aren't with us anymore either, right? They're gone. So, and then, it's just, it's heartbreaking to think, but those are the pioneers. Those are the ones that fought. That crisis was also in Canada too. I've got a good friend that was also a co-host of one of my shows, Loretta Clark, that was involved up here with the same epidemic that was going on in San Francisco, that was going on in Toronto. Mm-hmm. That was a famous stigma, and still is, right?
It was very sad. It was so sad to I heard about it later on. It was something that I was aware of at the time, but you're only as well as
Right.
you
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
and then learning really what it was about, learning about uh, the deep rooted hatred of something that was misunderstood and people being who they were. It was absolutely nauseating to see. And then you start to try to really look back at the policies and the reasons that cannabis was outlawed and how it was. And
Oh yeah.
it's based on some racist,
Oh yeah.
xenophobic,
Oh
Oh
yeah.
homophobic.
yeah. Oh yeah.
It's it's gut wrenching to really know how
It
deep
is.
that goes, and then, but it's not surprising that we're still undoing the damage that was done, as you
Yeah.
say, with the reefer madness and
It's
the propaganda, really.
Well, we have
That,
the propaganda still
yeah.
on the right
You,
side of
you
things.
know,
still
there's 95 years of propaganda and crap that's been going on, and that's not going to go away in a year or 4 years or 5 years. It's going to take several years in order to change that. And
And then you have,
it
like I said,
takes
then you have the right
generations.
side of things that is still are spewing about taking out, the drugs and the mental health trending and all kinds of things that they're doing that are good things that are going on in some places right now, like with harm reduction and stuff. And then you got the right side saying, no, we defund it all. We don't want to have any drug addicts. And you know what I mean? Like they don't even understand that cannabis can be used for substitution as well for any other affliction with
Yeah.
even with alcohol, cocaine, heroin, like high doses of edibles are very beneficial for that. Addiction is probably the biggest epidemic we've got right now.
And it's not being addressed in the way that it should in as you
Right.
say, cannabis is a lot of the research that I thought was gonna again. I was a little naive coming into it, like everybody, because the cannabis legalization it opens so many doors. It's a really
Right.
widespread one, but you didn't realize that a lot of the doors that they opened, they'd already cemented in a little room where that's how you have to walk into it. But the research that I was waiting for, I mean, as a grower myself, I mean, I started growing when I was 18 or so, and had a number of people that I grew with who were absolutely fantastic people who, like the genetics and the breeding that we did, we would have killed to have
I'm on the air.
the lab testing and everything like that. You okay? Everything good?
Yeah.
The lab testing and the research or the nerds, the science guys. We needed them. That's what we wanted to check what was going on with the cannabis that we were having or growing, what effect it had. We had all this anecdotal evidence from people who would smoke our stuff or use it for hash, or we try to use it was usually that or cannabis brownies. That's how almost everyone started back in the day. Cookies or brownies or some type of edibles.
Yeah.
And it was all it was a bunch of potheads and stoners and dedicated patients doing this. So we weren't this finely tuned machine. It was a lot of learning on the way, and that's what I was really hoping for, the research and the lab testing and all this stuff to really go towards patients, towards learning what kind of stuff helps with what. And I'm realizing that a lot of the research is going into proving whether or not cannabis is harmful or not, which aggravates me to the core, because we're selling tobacco and alcohol at mass. It just the argument shouldn't exist at all. It doesn't matter if it's harmful, which it isn't. All cannabis is therapeutic. But even if it is, it's not about whether it's harmful. This whole thing hasn't been whether it's harmful or not. It's about choice. It's about having the choice to do what we want as adult human people who have the right apparently to do that, but are denied access to things that we think help and have had to fight for years to get that. So it was really something that I knew I had to jump back on the side of advocacy almost real quick. I worked in the industry for a little bit, a couple years as, grower to patient care coordinator.
So you're
Go
working
ahead.
like within the licensed producers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
In the
Yeah.
machine, I like to call it. And
Oh yeah.
there are some fantastic people in there that it was so hard to see the regulations, the handcuffs, all the stuff that we had to loop and jump around when we'd been doing this for.
Mhm.
All they had to do was ask us how to do this, and we would have given Canada the opportunity to be an international player of cannabis on the market. Quality, undeniably some of the best grown stuff in the world, and instead it was kind of a rat race. It's really what it came down to, and was very stifling and frustrating for a guy who's looked creatively ahead for quite a while.
Does it seem now like there's almost 1,000 producers now in the country? I remember when there was just one. But with so many craft growers coming on board, that it's making a difference?
Yes, I will 100% shout out to the craft companies who have endured and survived and scraped and struggled to continue to make it this
Taken some of
far.
them a really long time.
It's taken them blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, stress you wouldn't imagine. It was a nightmare for so many people when it should have been an absolute dream come true. And I shout out deeply to anybody still in this trying to do it the right way and grow quality cannabis for people who deserve it and really are looking for it, because there's a lot of us out there who are really looking for quality, reliable cannabis. And that's something that I really feel for patients out there and people who have struggled for so long trying to self-medicate and self-dose. We've all been there. But that's what I really saw this as a reprieve to that, as something to the potential of really providing the patients of Canada what we've been fighting for and what we deserve, and give that nod to the rest of the world. And again, I digress, and I really like to let everyone know that I'm not completely a pessimist, that I'm very proud to be in the first country to legalize this. And as we said, we've got our ability to grow our own cannabis, and I'm very proud of that. But we've got always a long way to go, especially fighting for patients.
We've got the ability to make change
Yes.
when it comes to the cannabis end of things. Of course, it wasn't it's not exactly what we wanted when it started, but it was a big step, and there's lots of things that need to be corrected along the way. There's no doubt about that. But the biggest step was to get it legalized.
Yeah.
And we just still need the people, to be able to be advocates, to be voices. And now with legalization, there's even more people that are involved in that in order to make change. And hopefully anything can just go up and not backwards.
Couldn't agree more. That one step forward at a time. I'm glad I'm working with a number of places that are really just going to give a quick shout out to the CCTA, the Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance, that I've been working with, who are really working hard to make cannabis tourism a very viable thing, bringing on every level education to anybody and everybody who needs to understand the potential for cannabis tourism, not just into Canada, but on the global scale. And I'm proud to be working with that and the CTAI, the Cannabis Tourism Alliance International.
I saw somebody post on Facebook earlier that they were coming into Toronto by plane, and they wanted to know where the closest place was where they could get some cannabis.
Just send them my way.
There's somebody coming into the country, looking for cannabis, and I know at one point they were going to put a cannabis store at Toronto International, but I don't think it ever happened. So
well, it's mind-boggling to think that that's fantastic, and it sounds wonderful, and it is. But the follow-through is then what? Like you buy your cannabis, and then what? You go stand on the street.
You can't consume it.
You can't congregate. You can't get together. You can't chat. You can't meet someone like me, who is a dedicated cannabis educator and professional and wants nothing more than to answer your questions and help you get the experience that you deserve. You don't get to chat with patients or other people of a like mind who may have gone through something similar to you and have a huge amount of, whether it's applicable knowledge, it's opinion, it's hope, it's information that you can use, that you can try out, that it's options. And that's something that was actually very prevalent in Toronto before the before legalization, which is another ironic part of it. So there are.
It was great in Toronto before. It was great in Toronto.
Everyone wants to
enjoy the lounges,
the hot box, right? Yeah, the lounges were something that I brought my friends to. I brought my every one of my cousins. I was that bad cousin.
I had patients that were going to Toronto for treatment, and they would go to Vapor Central while they were there, so they could medicate in a place where they felt safe and they knew they could do it because they didn't live in the city, right? So on that note, we're getting a little long on here, so we're going to go to break, and then we'll come back, and we want to learn about your consulting business as well. So you're listening or watching the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at the Pace Radio Network's website at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the two easiest ways for people to help right now.
Pace Radio is the People Advocating Cannabis Education Radio Network.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Hey, we're back. And we got something going on really loud there. I can hear myself. Yeah. Oh, something. You left. You left to came back.
I did because my phone rang and I couldn't hear anybody.
Yeah.
Should I come back? I don't hear an echo. Do you hear an echo?
Oh, do you hear an echo?
Oh, yeah.
You're welcome. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll go out and come back.
You go out and come back. Boy, that was weird. I haven't had that happen before. No. So was there something that you was there as far as when we were going in the break? You were saying something. Is there something that you want to finish on what you were talking about, or shall we jump right into your consulting business?
Oh yeah, sure. I just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of the amazing organizations that I've been working with. Again, was the CCTA, Canadian Cannabis Tourism Alliance, who's been working very hard on making cannabis tourism, and as we were just chatting about before the break, vape lounges and cannabis lounges and places where we can get together and chat and talk and smoke and do what we've been doing for a long time. I've been working with that on this side of the border and have been doing a little bit of work with the CTAI, which is over in California, the Canadian Tourism Alliance International, as well as Education. I saw that you had Shauna on as a guest a couple of times ago, doing some amazing work. I was just actually asked to be a board member on there, so I'm really excited to join that team and be part of that push to make it viable, to have people understand that this is not only, we're past snickers and jokes about being unproductive stoners, that we are pushing an industry despite everyone not thinking. It was ironic, the number of people who asked me how fun it was to work in cannabis when I was working. I was like, it's one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life. And but it's wonderful to work with these people to try to push the narrative in the right way and make cannabis education a viable, not just vocation, but available to absolutely everyone out there. Not just something we do, but something that should be really integrated and pushed at a very, very high level, because it's what we need.
Yes. Now, there's something that I just want to follow up on you on something, and it's not from tonight. You were involved in the question 5.2 on the Cannabis Act review panel that we did here on the Pace Radio Network. You and Shauna, and that's where that's where I met both of you for the first time. On that panel, I see, because the Cannabis Act, they're reviewing those questions and the act itself, but they were also going to run a separate review of the medical cannabis program. And I see that now has been shifted back to the same people who are doing the Cannabis Act review. And that just adds more concern, not only on question 5.2, but the fact that these people are going to be looking at the medical cannabis program.
It's alarming on several levels to realize that this is just going to kind of, like, I just see it, the circle going around again, as the question should never have asked. And I know we all stood on our soapboxes and said that as loud as we could, that this is, the medical program cannot and should not ever be even minimized a little. Like, there should be only one way that the medical program goes, and it is bigger, and it is more accessible, and it is more informed. That's where we should have been taking this, and it's so important to do those things that we that we did, to stand up and try to shout to as many people that this can't happen. It was mind-boggling to me to think of the how much advocating we've done over the years. We're veterans of it in the cannabis industry, as far as standing up and calling out what shouldn't happen. And if this is something that I know personally, hundreds and if not thousands indirectly, people who would stand up together outside wherever and make this as loud as possible. But yeah, that was I heard the same thing. I haven't heard as many details as
it's just
which no surprise. They're not big on details or telling us exact timelines and this and goals. They just ask us very vague questions and then tell us they're going to change things up, which it's a bit frustrating, because we've got a long way to go with that.
All right, now, Tamara, have you got any questions you want to jump in there, or shall we get right into the consulting business?
I think it's wonderful, everything that he's advocating for. And like I said, there's so, like, the medical program is. And it was the same with the localization roundtables 5 years ago.
It's all been said. We've tipped the needle this way. There's no pushing us back. We've got so many people behind us now that if not know everything about it, just understand that it's not something that should be
the license. But here's a question: licensed producers would rather get away from medical. Even the stores that I go into here say that it's nothing but a pain in the ass, and they don't have the medical credentials, and they can't give advice. And people come in asking advice. They don't want the edibles even in their stores, some of them, because it's too much hassle, because people come in asking questions that they can't answer. So when is it going to become
at the root of it?
Right, you know what I mean? So we need stores that people can actually go to, people that know what the process is and know what everything is about, and like a medical dispensary like we used to have. And they've taken that completely out. And like you said, we don't have any vape lounges. We used to be able to go and vape and congregate as patients. Patients, the word patient is just totally overlooked.
Yeah, it's sad to say that it has. It's something that needs to be addressed.
I sat at those round tables 5 years ago. Well, they were making policies. I flew to Vancouver to be at them, and Ross was just at one again too, which with Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners, and we've been advocating for decades, and they don't hear us.
They are meeting now. I don't know whether you've been involved in one of those meetings or not, Matt, but I know that they are meeting with people. Like Ted got the call. To meet with them. Others have met with them as well. So they are meeting with people in obviously smaller settings, but they did that before, and there were still a lot of holes in the system. So hopefully things are better now. Like I sort of look at it. Did they when they legalized it, they had to have a message for the prohibitionists.
Here's the thing with legalizing it, because even in our Health Canada, right, the Act, all that we were ever promised was access as medical patients. We were never promised anything more than access. By every court case that they've ever taken to, the only thing they've ever promised us is access as patients. And now there's a store in every corner. So we don't count as patients, because they've given us the only thing that they wanted to give us and that we were entitled to was access, and we've got it. Good, bad, or ugly, we've got it. And that's the only thing that they were actually ordered to do for patients. And that's why we've got all these acts and the growing and the indictment or the injunction and all that stuff. All boils down to access. And now there's, like I said, 2 blocks. There's more pot stores in my little town than there's liquor stores. So there's no lack of access, but the glitch is you can't walk into that store and say, "Hey, I've got MS. What's going to help me?" I need
I
a higher dose of edible. That three, that package of 10, whatever gummies is not
yeah,
going to help me for what I need. Where's the RSO that's 45% THC? Like, you know what I'm saying here, right? So where's the crosshairs in that? That's what we need to get to. We need to make them realize that, yeah, we got access, but you've given us access to crap as patients.
Yes, it's especially with the again. There's some fantastic cannabis out there. There's some fantastic people growing and doing what we need to, but it's about the affordability. It's about safe access to quality, consistent cannabis, and it's not so.
And obviously, the biggest thing on the patients is the dose limits on the edibles and the beverages and stuff like that. We've only got another 10 or 15 minutes left here with Matt, so I wanted to get into his consulting business.
Happy to. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's something very near and dear to me. Has been a project that I've had for a long time. I've had kind of my own side business doing what I do, helping people with, I guess, again, as I started with the advocate / educator, helping people understand, no, you're not crazy. Cannabis is helping you. I don't tell you how to live, but put down the bottle, pick up the joint, and that is a good entryway into healing, into understanding, into introspection, into getting closer to nature, telling them to getting closer to the plant, the medicine that they're using, which leads to interest in growing it, interest in being closer, which sparks wonderful things, and is something that started naturally to me, again, as I mentioned, as a grower, as someone who just loved cannabis and nerded out on it as much as I could when I was younger, going above and beyond, reading as much as I could and learning from people. I really didn't start realizing how much I had to offer until we started having people kind of come from a little farther than I expected to smoke and speak with me and hang out and talk and see what I had to say about their grandpa's insomnia or their friend's PTSD from being, an emergency worker. To it started getting a little more complicated and a little more intricate. Working with people who were on palliative care, working with people who were having some very serious issues with some very serious diseases that were at their wits' end. They, coming to me, as many do, in a last-ditch effort to find some peace, to find some normalcy, to find some ability to, ride out the last little bit of their life. And it was something so impactful to me. It was something very eye-opening in my own experience to go, I've got my issues. I've got things I use cannabis for, anxiety and pain and, my sleepless nights and stuff like that. But it all puts it in perspective. And it really drove me to go, if I have any way to help people do that, I'm on game. Let's go for it.
Right.
So you sound like we say this often, and that is that people become patients and they find these benefits, and they can't be quiet. They've got to speak up. They got to say something. They got to educate others, and spread the word about what's going on and help others in the process.
It's how this is stayed alive, is the vibrancy that cannabis gives people to just, whether it's to create community, whether it's to heal, whether it's to calm or activate your creativity, to increase your satiety.
There's so many things. There's benefits for, like, people ask me why I smoke cannabis. Like, oh, well, number one, so I don't kill people.
Yeah. The number of side benefits that were I'd have people I have a little bit of pain in my knee, you know, should I try smoking some weed? Of course.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that was always yeah, for sure. You should try smoking some weed because you're a very tense guy or woman and you need to do that anyways. But it would be interesting the side effect of so people were like, oh, my knee pain was, I didn't notice anything of my knee because I was laughing hysterically at, you know, a painting. But I slept for the first time in, you know, 8 hours since I can remember. I didn't snore. My twitch that I usually have before I go to bed. And it was
Yep.
interesting to me. So it naturally became an idea that, you know, I have something to offer as far as an education role, but really didn't come into fruition until I saw the gap that was being created daily in the system and model that we've been talking about, where the patient has been completely left in the dust. And really made me think of the people that I wanted to do I want to be part of that or do I want to be part of this? And it really was a choice for me to step away from the industry and, you know, the moderate stability of that, because that's not even a thing, but to really start my own thing and go a bit against the grain and go, no, this stuff has to change. We need to advocate for educational programs like this. We need to advocate for a more comprehensive system to help us know what cannabis we're buying before we buy it. That also drives me absolutely bananas. That we need to integrate. We need to think about this a lot more than just it's legal, there it is, which was obviously what the plan was.
I have said this on the last 5 shows, and I said this in front of the Legal Cannabis Roundtable, and I'm going to say it again, Al. Until Health Canada recognizes marijuana as a fucking medicine, we aren't going to get anywhere with this. So we have to start lobbying Health Canada and our college and physicians. And I said it to them 5 years ago at the legalization roundtables, and I say it on every fucking show. We need to have Health Canada recognize cannabis as a medicine. End off.
Cannabis.
She does quite often. Yes.
All cannabis is therapeutic. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's a saying I say a lot.
Exactly, but that's why there's no research, because Health Canada doesn't recognize it. Why we can't get ahead and why we can't get DIN numbers and why insurance, you know, is because Health Canada doesn't recognize it as medicine. Plain and simple.
But we know, and that we know better.
And we know, absolutely. And there's been decades of us talking to them and telling them and giving them case studies and all this stuff, and they just don't hear us, right? So what's you guys' idea on getting this, you know, getting them to change it?
Starting from the foundations that, you know, I mentioned earlier, you know, the CCTA, CTAI, Education, and all the wonderful programs that are doing the same type of thing, that are really trying to push the envelope and make this if that's the only language they speak, if they want to have legals and that and have it, you know, have to go through research and all this stuff, that as we know,
that's right.
It has to be step by step. So it's something that we have to take one bit at a time. I am very much in the mindset of the same, that I see the future and I see it now, and I see how close it could be if we had some brave forward thinkers who weren't, you know, just worried about their voters and losing their job.
Yeah.
But having that said, that it is something that we also need to continue to do this. We need to educate people one by one, family by family, because that's how it spreads faster than anything. If you have a family member or you have a loved one who has been affected positively by cannabis and helped something, standing up and saying it, trying to, you know, however educated you are about, you know, stay within your limits, try not to diagnose people and stuff, but stand up and say, you know, it normalize it. Just continue to normalize it. Continue to have people go after work and have one group go off for a bunch of beers and the other group go off to someone's house and smoke some joints and hang out and chill, listen to some music.
Normalizing it is key.
It's key.
Yeah,
It's almost it's so imperative.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we've got 5 minutes left in the broadcast, and so before we run out of time, because I'm going to try to time this really good here, let's do the shout out and person, place, a thing, anything like that. And actually, is there anything else you want to touch on before we get to that?
Not that I know of. Oh, one thing that I would love everybody to check out. I've been very proud to be doing it through Meristem. It's another thing that I'm doing as a Ganjier is writing reviews for some Canadian cannabis companies in a magazine called Fat Nugs Magazine, which is based out of Atlanta.
Oh yes, yeah.
Fantastic crew out there, run by a guy named Dustin Hawksworth. Hats off to him and the entire crew out there who have really been a home away from home to try to get back into the culture and really breathe in what this is all about. Information from stoners, by stoners, to everyone else. We want to include everybody, but it's really aimed at people who understand this plant. And been doing some work for them, and urge everybody to check that out.
Good. That's awesome. Tamara, anything you guys say?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think anything's coming up right smartly that I can think of. 420, but that's changed.
We're not there yet. Yeah, that keeps changing. I understand. I hear. All right. Hey, you're frozen there. Okay. Other than that, just to let everybody know that Tamara and I will be back next week with a special guest. Catch not the reef reporters. I'll get that right. The psychedelic and cannabis education on the news broadcast tomorrow with Cindy and Glenn. And you can find us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. Social media. It's everywhere, right? Thanks to our sponsors, friendly and helpful folks at legacy420.com, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Huge thank you to our guest, Matt Jerome, for coming on the program. And it was like a fireside chat, I guess you could sort of say. It was just the three of us just sitting here talking. And
it goes by so fast. It's like it's over already.
Hey, an hour and a half. What are you talking about?
I'm amazed.
We can figure it out.
It was a pleasure,
right.
Al. Thank you very much for having me. Really, really appreciate it, and appreciate what you guys do. Thank you as well, Tamara.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And good night, everybody. We'll talk to you shortly.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.